Martin looking. Here's Clark. She fires and goes!
Doesn't matter if everyone knows whose hands it's supposed to be in. Magic happens when magic happens.
A legendary career adds another page in the legend.
Let's be real. Caitlin Clark's been catching heat left and right, and at this point, it's almost like background noise. But what's going down now? It's on a whole new level of crazy. For months, heck, even years, we've heard WNBA players and coaches downplaying Caitlin Clark. They've called her overrated, brushed off her achievements and milestones, and flat out claimed her game wouldn't cut it in the world's best women's basketball league. But at the end of the day, that's just their opinions, right? Now, the most incredible thing of all is that Caitlin Clark's hate, instead of decreasing over time, has been increasing. Even with her game improving over the year, it's inexplicable. She's already proven that all those claims were wrong. She's proved that she's not overrated, that her merits are justified, and that her style of play perfectly complements that of the WNBA. So, why does this keep happening? And more importantly, when is this hate finally going to end? We have to admit it. There were a few weeks when Caitlin Clark's haters were rubbing their hands together, smirking. Not only was her team, the Indiana Fever, struggling mightily during the early part of the season with a record of 1-8, but Caitlin's individual performance was much poorer than expected. And of course, all those players who had criticized her thought they were right. They thought Caitlin was not her, but alas, they were wrong. Let's take a look at some quick cases. Diana Taurasi, one of the best players in history, if not the best, talked about how, basically, Caitlin was going to crash and burn in the WNBA. Exactly, she said that reality is coming for Caitlin. And you better believe it, after seeing how Caitlin started her career, Taurasi was not so secretly smiling in the background. Another legend that hated on Caitlin was Cheryl Swoops. And when I say legend, I mean legend. For those unfamiliar with her game, the Houston Comets forward is a 3-time WNBA MVP and 3-time WNBA Defensive Player of the Year. The point is, even a legend like Cheryl Swoops couldn't resist throwing shade at the young star who brought more spotlight to the game than she ever did. Cheryl downplayed every record Caitlin shattered in college, setting the bar low and implying she wasn't cut out to be a generational talent. So when Caitlin stumbled out of the gates, you can bet Swoops was more than satisfied watching the Fever Guard struggle. But you know what? Tough luck for these two legends. And they weren't alone in sharing those opinions, because Caitlin has adapted to the WNBA in just a matter of weeks. And she's not just holding her own, she's dominating. As a rookie, she's become one of the top players in the second half of the season. No debate there. And I've got the numbers to back it up. Since mid-June, Clark is averaging 20 points, 10.2 assists, and 6.6 rebounds per game. Figures that if she had maintained from the beginning of the season, would have put her in the fight for league MVP. I have zero doubts about this. In the running for league MVP as a rookie. How insane is that? But you know the most incredible thing? This Fever, who started the season with a 1-8 record, have a record of 11-6 in the last 17 games. So not only is she dominating from an individual standpoint, but she makes her team better. And their record proves that. And by the way, Indiana has won all 3 games they played against Diana Taurasi's Phoenix Mercury. All those people who expected the guard to crash in her arrival to the WNBA, all those people who expected her to be one of the greatest busts in history are eating their words. And she hasn't even finished her rookie season. However, this performance by Caitlin should have silenced her critics, right? It should have drastically reduced the hate, right? Well, we can say for sure that it has not. In fact, the hate has increased even more over the last few weeks. And we're not just talking about Angel Reese, who's been her enemy and rival since the first day they shared the court in college. A player who, by the way, in addition to having made public statements against Caitlin, has also decided to use force against her on the court. No, it isn't just her. The whole situation has gone much further. One moment this year really takes the cake. When USA Basketball dropped the roster for the Paris Olympics, jaws hit the floor. Caitlin Clark was nowhere to be found. What a missed opportunity for the WNBA to go global. If you want new fans to watch, if you want to spread the gospel of the WNBA and gain revenue, then you need to put your most popular players on the grandest stage. Of course, Diana Taurasi was there though, who, by the way, barely saw the floor when it mattered most. Who was behind this head-scratcher of a decision? None other than Minnesota Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve. Now, This shouldn't be a problem, right? In the end, very few people in the world know the WNBA players better than Cheryl, and I'm sure she had a plan to dominate in the Olympics, right? Well, that plan backfired spectacularly. Not only did Team USA struggle to secure gold, something that's usually a given in women's basketball, but for the first time in decades, the team's image looked shaky. And all the while, Caitlin was stuck at home, watching it unfold with nothing she could do to change the narrative. But you know what they say, what goes around comes around. Cheryl Reeve didn't just face a wave of backlash for that baffling decision, she felt the heat right before the Olympics even kicked off. And let's be honest, plenty of folks were calling it straight up jealousy over the Caitlin snub. But here's the fun part. On July 14th, the Indiana Fever were playing the Minnesota Lynx in Minnesota. And it was a strange game to say the least. Because during some parts of the night, it was the hometown Minnesota fans who were cheering for Caitlin and the Fever. I say again, the home team fans were cheering for the opposing team. Yes, just like when Jordan was cheered by the entire Madison Square Garden, Clark was being cheered by the opposing fans. And that, of course, didn't sit too well with Reeve.
All around the league. But as a coach of the home team, there's going to be a lot of people cheering for that other side.
I don't get two shits.
How about one?
Not even one shit.
Admittedly, her response at the press conference can't be taken as a shot at Caitlin. She simply responds that she doesn't care. But here's the real deal. Whenever Cheryl has had the chance to praise or support this generational talent, she's opted to stay silent or say something snide instead. And this move was just another example of that. It's clear she's feeling the envy, struggling with the spotlight Caitlin's getting. After all, here's a rookie raising the profile of women's basketball more than the whole league combined. But maybe we should cut Reeve some slack. Maybe. Because just recently, she finally gave a nod to the former Iowa star.
Seeing Minnesota's coach, I think her tone changed. People called her out on her changing her tone as well. This is her before.
I don't get two shits. Not even one shit.
This is her now. This was prior to the game, by the way, so.
Well, I wish one was playing for us. Either one.
I wonder what made her have a change of heart.
And not for nothing, but this is what's gonna end up happening with all those players who disrespected her. Because that's what happens with all generational players. Look at the case of LeBron James, one of the most hated on players during his first few years in the league. Everyone hated his attitude, but by demonstrating his dominance and being a role model for an entire generation, he's now one of the most beloved players in history. So Caitlin, if she gets everything she's supposed to get, will be a similar case. Now, not everyone has noticed. A few days ago, one of the most influential and famous players in the WNBA, with a huge social media presence, Skylar Diggins, did this in a game against the Indiana Fever. One of the most recent displays of envy that players around the league have shown towards Caitlin. But at this point, nothing surprises me anymore. At some point, Skylar will be the one to realize how stupid her behavior looks. Because that's not about wanting to compete. It's not about showing your best and most competitive side. It's not about stepping up to challenge the best and proving your greatness. What we're seeing here is a display of sheer helplessness against a dominant player and a classic case of childish pettiness. Come on, Skylar. Are you not better than this? I've talked about this in other videos, but it's amazing how WNBA players don't realize that Caitlin is going to be the one who saves the WNBA. She's going to increase revenue exponentially, especially when the Fever become one of the best teams in the entire league. Something that, as we've seen in the second half of the season, will happen as soon as next season. This will increase the salaries, popularity, and influence of a league that has a lot of potential for expansion. But in the meantime, the hate on Caitlin continues to grow. And while many athletes in her situation would crumble under the pressure, she's proven her resilience time and time again. Because she's not just a player who aspires to be generational, she aspires to be the greatest basketball player of all time, with a mentality befitting of what that status actually means. And that is the only reality that's coming.